Well, look, thank you all for being here. We met with Lucinda a month ago and got a little sense of what you've been up to as a team, and it was very exciting for us to learn. So I thought that today we would just explore a little bit of that. Leah and I have a whole bunch of questions to ask you, what it's been like, particularly this year, after many different iterations of collaboration leading up to this time. But let's start with Leah by introducing yourself, a little bit of your role, and we'll just go around all four.
Okay, I'm Leah Lloyd. I teach kindergarten, and I'm part of the team.
Okay. And how many years have you been at Arden, Leah? Like roughly? 8
years, I think.
Around 8?
Yeah.
Great.
Taught kindergarten for 14 years, so
yeah.
all over the place.
And we interviewed 4 years ago, if people are interested in going back and seeing what has happened since then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I'm Michelle Honeysett, and I teach kindergarten, and I'm part of the team. I've been at Arden 4 years, and I was at Miracle Beach before that, and Ides before that. I've been teaching kindergarten for 8 years, maybe. 8, great.
Thanks, Michelle.
I'm Sarah Kerr, and I was teaching kindergarten this year, and I've been at Arden off and on for 5 years, and then Courtney L prior to that. It was my first year joining this wonderful team.
My name is Katie Arsenault, and I am also part of the kindergarten team. And this is my second year in kindergarten grade 1 configuration, and formerly in LST for 14 years.
First time out of LST.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very neat. Well, thank you for that description. Now, I'd love to kind of track back a little bit. One of our major areas of focus is what is collaboration, and is it formal? Does it have to be formally framed? How is it possible to sustain it if there isn't a formal container? We've got a whole bunch of questions that we'd love to explore with you, but what's the nature of your project? How did you come together as a team, and how did that start?
It was kind of organic, I would say, to start, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before Katie arrived and before we had Sarah part of our kindergarten team, Leah and I, when I arrived 4 years ago, started doing little bits together, and not right away. Kind of sussed each other out a little bit first.
Is that an important part of the process?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
why
so.
is that so important?
Well, we were talking this morning in our group about trust. I think is really key in a collaborative group, and that can be, I think, developed in a structured group, but also if it's going to begin organically, I think that there is a part of that has to happen first.
And you have to know if your teaching styles are going to meld together. You have to know, are we kind of in the same teaching philosophy track? You know, when you're putting some of your children or all of your children into someone else's hands and you're taking theirs, you need to know that you feel confident with what they're doing as well.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's a critical piece.
Yeah, totally. And then Leah and I just started doing a few things together. We started doing and fairly low risk things to begin, right? Like joining together for gym, doing outdoor learning together was our major focus at first. And then because we were doing more and more work together, Lucinda approached us about doing the RTI and sort of trial running what it would look like as a collaborative team in kindergarten. And we did that for 1 year before Katie, maybe 2.
I think
2 years maybe before Katie joined.
So we're talking 3 years ago, possibly?
4 years ago.
So am
4
I in
years
my
ago.
5th year here?
You must be.
So just in terms of time, that was the year before the formal PLC implementation?
That sounds
Or the
about
first
right.
year, the year before?
Before that, really.
The year before
Yeah,
that.
the year before that, for sure.
And that's when Jeff Manning was here, still having
Yes.
the kids in the gym and
Yes, yeah.
things
And
like
lots of outside time doing things like outdoor explorations and just kind of inquiry kind of things outside a lot of the time. Yeah.
So you've maintained the RTI focus for that period of time.
Yeah.
And what, maybe just keep going around, Sarah, when you joined, and Katie, where did you pick it up and how did you get involved?
I'll let Katie go first because
Okay. Yeah.
So I joined last year and didn't know much about RTI, but really believe strongly in collaboration and that if you're doing things together, it just is easier. So I just jumped in with 2 feet, and they kind of led me as to how we were going to. That's not true. Initially, but willingly, and just kind of followed their lead. And then we just continued to develop how it worked and what we valued and what was important and where we were going with it. So,
and Katie and I have known each other for a really long time as well. So I think it was probably even easier.
That's true.
And I've known Katie for a long time too. Actually.
We've actually known each other for quite some time prior.
Is that primarily professional or friendship?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Even though we've
Although
not
Leah and I
worked in the
didn't
same
before.
school.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thus the
Oh,
trust.
I didn't know that. Oh, there you go.
I like you.
Right.
How are you?
Exactly.
I don't know about you.
I could help with that then, had I
That's
known.
right. Yeah. No. By the time you arrived, we were good fast.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
And Sarah, or Katie, as you walked into it, what attracted you to it? I know the RTI was of significance, but in terms of, and you love the collaboration, were there any other things that kind of made you want to jump in?
Well, I had a very low class, which they had before, and I wasn't going to fit in with the typical grade 1, based on my experience as an LST and my work with executive functioning and functional curriculum and adapting curriculum for kids and meeting their needs. I had a very challenging class that was very lovely but very low and needed some very specific instruction, and so I fit better with the kindergarten model than I would have the academic grade
And we
1
had
model.
the experience with those grade 1s the year before as well, and so we sort of said to Katie, you might
Start
work well
here.
over here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so having that background knowledge of where they're at and just meeting them there and going forward, it was a no-brainer, really. Why would I do anything differently? So
Kind of the beauty of the RTI model actually too is you have many eyes on a group of children, and so it's not just one person's assessment of what's going on. It's a group of people who are able to sort of decide and assess what's happening with those kids and where they need to go next.
It's kind of an assessment learning community.
yeah,
totally.
completely. Well, and I knew that my kids were low, but I also knew that I had varying levels within every classroom you do, and so we could meet the needs really with targeted, specific teaching with 3 of us better than with just myself. So, yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah.
And Sarah, could we?
Yeah, and then I was excited to jump in this year. I had previously worked, I co-taught with Lucinda Walters the prior year, and we had a really good working relationship, and knowing I was going to be leaving that, it was really nice to know I was going to have support for my first year in kindergarten, as well as being able to see how they ran their RTI, because we had dabbled in it the year before, but they had such a solid foundation on how to run it. They've done so many trials and what works and what didn't work that it was just fabulous to be able to jump in, feel supported.
Yeah, very neat. So you've seen a lot of iterations since the conception of the team 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of different faces and influences. In terms of, and we'd love to talk with you about the container within which that's happened. Initially, you operated fairly independently as a group because there wasn't structured PLC time. Then we went through structured PLC time for 2 years, and then this year it was turned into curriculum implementation time, and then next year there's no particular structured formal time. So I'd love to hear
Our
your...
school has a structured time set up.
Talk about that a little bit, Leah.
We've decided that RTI is a priority for our school, and so our staff has agreed to, on Tuesday after school, for the hour after school, we meet with our grade groups and focus on RTI. So,
Right.
yeah.
We had a conversation with the superintendent this morning. He talked a lot about the politics of time. So you're saying you volunteered, your groups decided to dedicate that time. Do you feel any conflict or voices in the back saying we're not supposed to do this?
I think because it's our Pro D time.
Okay.
Okay.
I think people felt like, it would normally be our Pro-D staff meeting. And I think we felt like, well, this is really good professional development for everyone. And that it's definitely, I think if we thought about how RTI has helped us grow as teachers as well, and as a staff, and that we sort of value and recognize that the importance of that.
Yes. You say as a staff, are we talking K right through 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all in different spots with it, but I think everybody's sort of, the intermediates have really started just dabbling in it this past year, and I think, when we were sitting in our meeting this morning, we were in our grade groupings, and we were doing just a what worked, what didn't, what's next kind of thing.
Nice.
And it was interesting when we went to present and listen, as the group that's been in it the longest, listening to where other people were at. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I remember kind of being in that spot where you're still trying to really figure out how the schedule works and moving kids around and or finding your targeted outcome that you really want to work on with the different groups of kids. So it was almost like kind of a look back at some of the problem areas that we had worked through, and
recognizing your growth and that you
which was kind of neat to see as well.
I have an answer for that, she says.
And it's neat to see other people working through really similar process.
And I think the beautiful part of that is that next year we already know where our staff is, and we've kept most of our staffing for the first time forever, and so that you can build on your relationships and build on what you've already done, which is huge.
And not just our relationships with our colleagues, but relationships with the kids,
with the students,
because Sarah has the benefit of being the kindergarten teacher this year, but being a grade 1 teacher next year. So she knows those kids, and they know her as the teacher. They just called us teachers, right? This is my teacher.
Which is a really fabulous thing when you're talking about like early primary, especially as well, to have that many more trusted adults who they know and can recognize when you're going around the school, right?
The continuity.
And
And your knowledge of them is reciprocal of their knowledge of you.
That idea of children being known in their school community is a really powerful
very much
thing, right? When they, there's these many adults who know who you are, who can greet you as you walk through the halls, just that feeling known and belonging.
Or on supervision, right? The kids would come up to you, and 60 of the kindergartners, right? So that makes a huge difference for their parents, right?
And actually, after doing it for 4 years, I can recognize now all the way up to grade 3 or 4 most of the kids, right? Whereas before I would have only just known my kids from the kids who'd passed through my class, right?
So you're describing a real learning community.
Definitely.
Makes sense. I'd be curious to pick up what you said, Michelle, about you recognize yourselves in different stages. What were some of the stages, like when you built up to the degree, and I would call it a degree of sophistication at which you're operating now? What were some of the phases or stages? I don't know stages, but things you went through to get to where you are.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm smart enough to.
Well, I think it first started with figuring out what works for you as a teacher, because you do have to be comfortable with what you're doing. And
the building of the trust.
Yeah.
The letting go of the
and how you're going to communicate with one another also.
Yes.
Because you need to, it was really important for us that we saw all of our children. That was, I think, our number one thing, that we wanted to be part of their learning all year long. And we wanted to be able to communicate to parents how we felt that their child was doing. And if you just hand your child over to another teacher, but you don't interact with them, you can't honestly say, other than, oh, well, their score says this. Well, sometimes it's more than just a score. So that, I think, was our foundation of, okay, we need to see all our kids. How are we going to do that? And then we went through many different systems.
And what were, that's essential. So the focus was on the kids, but the different systems you went, what ones were maybe fundamental to the way you function today?
it's movement of people and politics of time, like you say, but and on a smaller scale, sort of just like how are we going to get to see all our different groups? Do we rotate the teacher week by week? Do we rotate the teacher day by day? Do we
logistics, right?
Logistics, a lot of logistics behind it. And at first I think the logistics can feel really overwhelming. So when we were in our meeting today, and you can see the beginnings for the intermediates and that overwhelming feeling there of like the logistics of the timetabling and the
and the people too. I
part.
think we've gotten really good at, you need to be able to do things where if I was the only person in the room, I could do it. Right? Because sometimes we have parent volunteers that help, and if they didn't show up for that day, their child was sick, or our LSTs weren't replaced this year, so if they didn't show up for the day, could we still run our group? Because we felt it was important that we have them 5 days a week, no matter what.
Consistency.
We got really good at that.
We did.
Like this year, we got it. We figured out how to do that, because I think that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. You know, they just need one thing to kind of go sideways, and then we can't do it.
And I think that was part of our success this year, like why we saw such growth in our kids, is because even if they didn't attend all the time, right, they were still, what they were doing was consistent. So everybody had extreme growth, right? But we did it 5 days a week. So if there was an assembly, we just didn't do it that day, but we did it the next day, right? Like there was some times where we couldn't have it based on school things that were happening, but it was Monday to Friday. We just knew Monday to Friday we're doing RTI at this time. That's really right.
So that commitment.
Definitely. Commitment, and I think as you grow as a team, the ease of communication as well. So you get better at communicating things, and working together was one of the things that we were talking about this morning. Actually, the way as a group we kind of separate jobs, and we almost do it really automatically now, and sort of equalize out what we're doing. Like, you're just taking on way too much. Can give me back some of that. I'll do this piece, and so it's not really like a delegating thing. But I don't know.
I think it's
sharing
funny
the load is what we said. Sharing the load
completely. And I think it's interesting that we've come to that point, because when I started last year, you still, even though we know each other outside, you still, and you kind of know my work ethic. You were reluctant to give me pieces, because I feel like maybe there wasn't that accountability, and there wasn't maybe that accountability in the past when other members have come in. But
that's interesting.
Then now you're like
controlling.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's okay. I mean, you want it done a certain way, and I respect that completely. But I was like, no, I can do some of those things. Oh, right. We don't have to take this all in, which I think is the beauty of collaboration, is that it's not just you doing all of it.
So
right?
true.
It was dividing.
Totally. And we were so used to working as a team of two as well.
Well, and part of that too, I think we talked about that this morning too, is when your life is really busy, like we all have families, we all have other things going on in our lives, and so, sometimes if you were up all night with so-and-so and they were puking, well, you know what, we'll take that off for you, we've got it covered, and there we go, it's nice.
And I think it's important to note, like, it's not, we don't have just a set time where we say, you know what, we're sitting down Tuesdays and we're just going to meet after school. We're touching base all day, before school, lunch, after school. May just be a couple of us, it may be all of us. It just seems to become something that's natural now.
I was going to say, and part of that, actually, Sarah, it's a really good point, is we've also built into our other time together as well, that's a little more flexible to allow for some talking and that sort of thing, where we take our kids outside every morning for 45 minutes. We do either a forest walk or a schoolyard kind of investigation, and then we end up at the playground, because our kids don't go to the playground by themselves very often in kindergarten, because the rest of the school is there and it's overwhelming. So we take them to the playground by themselves for anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes, depending on the morning. And during those 10 or 20 minutes, we just
Yeah.
talk.
We
We're watching.
collaborate.
Everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Everyone's scanning, but we're talking and we're planning and we're.
Well, and that's where you
You
can
know?
say so and so's not here today, so their mom won't be there for your group, just so you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can mentally be prepared.
Yeah,
for when
or
you walk in.
so and so's having a really hard day.
Yeah.
You know, when you have him in group today, you might, you know,
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that, you know, that sort of thing. So it's really nice that touch and
Yeah.
base in our in our morning.
Constantly fluid and it's there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible to answer the question, but how much of the time is actually collaborative in terms of your teaching? I mean, is that possible to even answer? I mean, how much is shared?
Up to 50% maybe?
Oh, really?
If
It
not
might even
more.
be
If not
some
more.
days.
It might even be more.
Yeah, some days more.
Some days more?
Yeah.
Some days a little less?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Average of 50
Did-
maybe?
Yeah.
Did you
Average.
ever envision that you'd be working that tightly with 3 other persons or 4 other persons? Was
No.
somebody involved?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So going back like 6 years and going, you guys are all going to be working together on your.
Yeah. Well, given
It's
that,
fabulous.
I mean, does the formal structuring of time even matter? Is it a moot point?
I think it has to. I mean, when we first started, when Jeff Manning was here and he did the running reading
Yeah.
for us, and we had time to meet with our grade groupings, and we had a formal paper where it'd be someone was the recorder, someone was, we had
Bit of
jobs
structure.
and and it had a lot of structure to it. And I think we've all done that at some point in our careers anyway. And so for us to come together and work as a group, I think is really easy because we're used to, review what we did last time, what are we talking about now, and what's our goal. Like, we don't waste time.
So those processes that were built in at a very early stage,
Yes.
then morphed into some of the norms of collaboration.
Yes,
that,
exactly.
That
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
work with the
And
professional
almost
learning
automatic.
community model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then adaptive schools. So tell
Yeah.
me about that evolution in
Totally,
terms
yeah.
of you've talked about the importance of the earlier stages, Leah. Maybe map us through what's happened since then in terms of the formal processes you've tried to practice in terms of communication and structure.
Well, the norms of collaboration are great.
Yeah.
Because I often charge in and just do things and trial and error, and Katie's more the voice of reason. And I'm like, well, let's just do it and see what happens. And she's
Yeah.
like, well, which is good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we all balance each other
We do,
out
yeah.
that way.
And respectfully.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
We definitely have autonomy,
Yes.
but we also respect each other's strengths and not necessarily weaknesses, but challenges.
Yeah.
or- yeah.
Totally.
And respectfully disagree with each other.
Yeah.
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 We don't just agree.
So
Yeah.
the working with conflict has been constructive.
I think
Right.
so, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we also, choose, wisely where we're going to compromise too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really feel like, I had to give up something I really felt strongly about.
No.
I
Yeah.
I think we're good at recognizing if there's something someone feels they really want.
Mhm.
Great, let's do it.
And I think that's a really good point. We check our egos at the door when we walk into our meetings, or we don't take it as criticism in a negative way. We just take it in, what's our main goal is to meet the needs of our students. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with what our students need.
And where they're at.
And bringing them forward, right? So,
So my other question, how do you maintain autonomy? Katie, you mentioned the importance of and significance of maintaining autonomy. When you leave your ego at the door, how do you do that?
mutual respect. That's a good question.
Well, I think because we have input into what activities we're doing with our students, right?
Yeah.
I think whether or not an activity works, because I might create an activity and say, okay, this is what we're going to do for them to help learn their double letter sounds or whatever. And Katie's in that group for that week, and she comes out and she goes, it's not working.
Yeah, your sessions like that.
I'm going to start cleaning out the fridge in about 10 minutes, so most of it's going to go in the garbage unless there's something you really want. If you could just go get it, that'd be great. Thanks, bye.
Save the dessert. Save the dessert.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt my feelings
That's a
that
good way
it
to put
didn't
it, yeah.
work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then we work
I
on
was
how
gonna
we're
say-
going to tweak it.
Well,
Being
and I
really
think-
open to that feedback. Sorry, is what I was going to say, just about putting yourself out there and being okay with having feedback and not taking things personally and being able to give feedback and knowing that the other person isn't going to take it personally.
I was going to say, there would be a few things that I think, oh, this would be really neat for my class to do. Do you want to do it? No, not this time. And I don't take it personally because it's just, she's doing something else. Or yes, I'll take part. Like, so it's not ever.
Yeah. And I think it's because we develop it together. So that autonomy is easy because we come up with ideas. Like we kind of brainstorm ideas. And I just go back to that time we were trying to get that group together. And it was just, I wish we had a camera recorder in there. And it was just... if you would have walked by, you would have been wondering what was going on in there because they're like, and then we could. What was that?
Let's do that. Yes.
And then we could do it this way. And I mean, it was just like this excitement and build. I'm like, should I be that excited about this? Like, I feel like
like it really is just a letter sound activity.
Yeah.
It's a letter sound activity. It's really not that exciting.
But it was. And it changed the course of our entire structure for the next piece of it, which is we were kind of getting stuck and going.
You're
like, this is what we need to do. Yes.
Yeah, and then it was all of us were just like bing, 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 bing. It was exciting.
Sometimes there's an identifiable moment that just triggers.
And that was it.
That was
Synergy,
it. Yeah, that was totally it. Yeah.
And comes at a very unexpected time.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
When you're meeting about letter sound activities.
Maybe it was the boredom that drove you to the excitement. Let's not make this boring. Yeah, that's fascinating. So looping back to that question again, moving to the adaptive schools, are there processes there that have supported and assisted the team?
I find it that the adaptive school stuff is very reflective, and so I think that's helped us to really, when we do things and we reflect on them, it just helps us with that process. I think we're a little bit more whole, like we're reflecting from our perspective, but we're also putting ourselves into our kids' shoes and going, okay, they're really having a hard time. Why are they having a hard time? We've done this before, but for some reason, it just adjusts your focus. So,
and for me, the paraphrasing piece, it honestly has been huge for me, because often I'll go away previously and think something completely different than what was actually said. So for me, that paraphrasing piece has been really huge in my teaching.
Really clarifying.
Really clarifying.
Versus what has been agreed upon even.
Before you go off on your tangent.
Just wait a minute. Right? So this is what we're doing. This is
Very neat. Other things?
I love the adaptive schools because it's so inclusive. So everybody gets a voice, but you don't feel, because I'm comfortable. I'm fine with talking in front of people, but not everybody is, right? So it allows for that extrovert, introvert personality to still have a voice. And as a special ed teacher, that is really important to me because often it's those kids that get missed. So I love that as a staff it's being modeled, and then we can bring those strategies within our classroom.
And are you feeling a direct spin-off from the practices that you employ and apply to your kids, work with kids, paraphrasing, those sorts of things?
I find my group is very good at communicating with one another. And because they see all the kids from each of the classes, they meld really nicely together.
They are inclusive.
They're very inclusive.
And their problem-solving skills are much stronger, because, they're my friend too. Because they've seen them before. And just because we're not within the same four walls all the time, they still view them as their peers.
It branches out into the students as well. Their fluidity between
spaces
and rooms and teachers.
If you had asked us 5 years ago about getting kindergarten students to move in between 3 different classrooms, we would have been like, that sounds terrible. You want kindergarten kids to move from this classroom to that classroom and back in 20 minutes?
But if you were to come into each of our rooms, they're very similar structured, but not
On purpose.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
not on
the
purpose.
kids know where to look for schedules. They know, like it's very similar.
Yeah.
Just consistency for the kids to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all mapped
Just
out.
just that continuity between our rooms as well, right? Where there's that similarity in philosophy, and we've built some common language, and we've built common practice and
common visuals.
common
Go to the green
visuals.
box.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's right. We're using the same words, so they kind of pick up on that and are able to apply those things to
Yeah.
Well, and they treat us all like their teacher because you know, if they're on the playground and they have a problem, they can come to any of us and get an answer.
And they do.
And they do, which is
And they feel comfortable doing so.
exactly.
Yeah.
And at the end of this year, it still touches me that this one little boy from Katie's
My
class had told his mom that he needed to get a gift for all his teachers, and so he brought me one, and
Oh,
like it was
Right.
just
you're equal.
it showed
Yeah. That ownership.
So cool.
What spin-off would the kids be experiencing from watching you, or do they observe you interacting and solving problems, communicating?
I would assume they see us do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. I mean, as adults in their life interacting, we're role modeling what it looks like to communicate with one another, and
And often we'll do that very
happy.
intentionally. Actually,
Yeah, very true.
Yes.
We often are
Yeah.
intentionally modeling some problem
Yeah.
solving in front of
We
them,
are.
where we're like, so boys and girls, we have a little bit of a problem today. You know, we don't get to use the gym, so we're just talking here about where we're going
We're
next.
trying to figure out what we're going to
Yeah.
Very,
So,
very neat.
Yeah.
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 Very neat. Yeah.
And it keeps popping up for me, so I'm going to talk about it. I was here a year or two ago, and this particular image struck with me, and it was you had laid out on sheets the makeup of each class.
Oh, yeah.
Based
That was
on
last year.
was it last year?
Yeah.
And that visual for all your other colleagues was so potent, and for me, I've taken it forward multiple times. Here's one of the gifts of doing what you're doing, is you create for not only yourself but others, and even the students themselves, that sense of here's what we're dealing with, and they're going to be moving through that transition into further classrooms, and so it does become ours. It's not just kindergarten, it's not just grade 1. You really created that beautiful visual understanding about what's going on and what we can do about it, and it just opened up the floor for some great dialogue and possibilities. So,
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because today at the meeting again, you know, they're like, well, this next group, like we were talking about RTI and how much time is required for each group, and then it was, well, remember the class with all the yellows and the reds, those are the kids that are now going into grade 3
now.
So we need to be mindful that they're still at that level, and there is this much need at that level. So and the
where
conversation
resources
was like, remember those posters, and so you're right, the visuals.
That's another turning point, I would think.
Yeah,
Where everybody could see, and I remember the sounds in the room of like, oh,
it's very
saying,
visual.
oh, we have 20%, and
Yeah.
it's all very cerebral. But when you saw that,
Yeah.
Well, we talked
it
about
really
also,
hammered
you know,
collaboration.
those kids have had 3 teachers before you.
Exactly.
So talk to them. Find out what's worked for them.
Yes.
Find out where they're starting at. Like, there's no reason why you need to go in blind and frustrated. You know, we've put a lot of work into them, and you know, talk to us.
And those models, if you will, could not have come out of one person's slogging through.
No.
That was a collaborative,
Oh,
that was
totally.
an artifact of collaboration is what it was,
Yeah.
that had ongoing impact.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, we're so much better working together.
Yeah. Well, it's
Absolutely.
even interesting. I was talking with a colleague from another school who also does kindergarten, and they were talking about their placement of incoming kindergartens for this coming year. And I was talking about how we do it and how our gradual entry lets us see. We work together on the first week of school, where we get eyes on all the kids. We team teach for 3 days so that we can see all the kids and get a sense of all the kids,
nice. Yes.
so that when we go to make our class placements, and we do beforehand, we have already done a lot of legwork where we have in our registration package, we've asked for an interview from the parents where they give us all kinds of information about their children, from their level of independence on toileting and bathroom and food and that sort of thing, as well as, you know, have they had any preschool experience, you know, what are some of how do they deal with fears and problem solving and those sort of things. So we have all this information from parents, and then we get together in September on our first week and we all have eyes on all those kids. And so then we look at our lists that we've developed just from our interviews, and we look at our lists at the end of that week of being with them in gradual entry, and we go, oh, okay, so have we put these classes together the best we can? Do we think this is going to work? Yes, we do. And if not, then we make quick changes, but nobody's been tied to a certain classroom.
Yeah,
they haven't
right.
been told they're in Mrs. Arsenault's class, or they're in Mrs. Mason's class, or they're in Mrs. Lloyd's class.
Interesting.
They've been introduced to all of us.
All of us.
Yeah.
And they've been introduced in one space. We start out in Leah's room.
And their parents have been
And they're
introduced
I was just
to
going
all
to
of
say
us,
the
which is
parents
very
did
one
nice.
space.
this as
Yeah.
well.
Right?
Introduce my
Anyhow, I was talking to a friend, and she said, I can't believe how we do it in our kindergarten, because she's there temporary, and she's watching this other kindergarten, and she's seen our kindergarten too, so she's seen both places, and she said they just like randomly, just from names, choose who's going to be in those classes. And she's like, they don't know anything about the kids at all.
Right. So someone's
Yeah.
going to have a rough year and someone's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, and she said, and even after the first week of them being in their kindergarten space, she said there was no changes made. So there's 2 kindergarten classes, she says, that are very different in composition, right?
Wow.
So they've got one class that's really, really difficult
Yeah.
and has a lot of needs and has, you know, a lot of effort needing to be put into to helping those kids, and then another class that is much easier, less
luck of the
needs.
draw.
Yeah. I want you're generating within your team huge knowledge about the kids and an understanding of the kids and compassion for them, and you know, real closeness. And then my thought is, well, past that, grade 2, 3, 4. You mentioned you do communicate out to those guys, the yellow and the different orientations that kids hold, but what how do you build a K-6 team in the sense of what you have? Could you talk a little bit about that?
How does that
I
grow?
think some supporting, some mentoring a little bit is what we've been trying
So you've been mentoring some of those
trying to
grade
do,
3,
you know,
4.
and I think people have come to ask us
Yes.
about how our system works, and
Well, and I think they're getting our students
Yeah,
who are
that's right.
used to
That's
operating
exactly
in
right.
this system.
Yeah.
We're
So,
starting.
you know, it's like, well, no, they can do groups, they can do all of these things, so you don't have to teach them how to do that. You get to start here instead.
Yeah.
Because we've already laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
And then they get through grade 1 and wow, they can move and
They
do
can
all
move
these
through
things
school without
beautifully.
getting lost.
So grade 2 is even better. And then they're also getting those kids that we all have where their deficits are significant. And it's like, okay, how do I teach this child for 5 hours a day? You know, like what do I need to change in my practice? Because it's not, it's really reflective of your own teaching practice too, I think. I think it forces you to evaluate what you are having as priorities for your students, where you see the individual needs are, and recognizing that, all right, I can't meet 22 individual needs. I need to work with my colleagues to figure out how we're going to do this. And
your groups.
I think people are just getting it.
They're orienting toward that. And do they come to you? If I were a grade 4 teacher, do they come to you and say, "What about Neil? He's really perplexing me." Do you find that happening?
Yeah.
I think so.
Especially at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
Or even at the end
End of the
towards
year.
school-based team kind of.
They see it coming. So
Yeah.
So the school-based team is one of the vehicles or one of the mediums through which you communicate and through staff meetings. Is there much the type of informal talk that you spoke of earlier in the interview? Does that occur cross grades into the intermediate? Does that filter out in the same way, or?
I would say there's more of it that happens in the primary wing, and I think that's partly just a proximity thing.
Maybe.
But
I think at
in the staff
lunchtime
room,
in the
I was
staff
gonna say,
room,
we do. That's true, we do, and we try and.
I find that we talk more with the intermediates about families.
Yeah, social, emotional.
So I think we communicate more about their social needs as families, maybe. The learning, not as much.
So along those lines, what would you say facilitates that cross-grade communication? What sort of things need to be in place or to be built in?
You know what? And I think in the perfect world, for me, being able to just come in this past year and actually just be immersed in what they're doing, I think it was just my boost. It was what I needed. And I think that if other teachers in intermediate or whatever could just come and see it happening, because it's really hard, even when I was last year listening to how they were running things, to visualize how it worked and how it ran. It was really difficult, but then once you're in it and you're actually able to see it work, was where it became.
So it's and when they see their kids participating with our kids and how much they're enjoying it and how much they're on task and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they go, "Oh, it might work."
I think that also our vice principal, Lucinda, is really good at creating opportunities within our professional staff meetings our professional development staff meetings that because of the adaptive schools model, it's not all kindergarten students or kindergarten teachers together. It's, she gives us ice cream and colored cones or whatever it might be to mix it up and to make different groups all the time. So it causes those conversations to happen
beyond us.
Cross grade, cross curricular, whatever our theme might be at that point in time. And I think that is really, because I feel like I know the people who teach grade 6 and I feel like I know the people who teach kindergarten, and so I feel comfortable having those conversations, even if they're difficult conversations to have.
So
and that's part of that trust again.
Some specific formal processes that guarantee that you're going to cross-fertilize ideas.
When you're in your mixed groups.
Mix it up.
By constantly having the icebreakers at our staff meetings,
I was going to say,
constantly having
the format of our staff meetings.
The format of how it's run
has changed things
has
a lot.
changed the way we can all interact.
And can you name a couple of critical pieces of that are different than what they might have been?
Well, I'm thinking just today we did bumper stickers on our Arden culture and our RTI, and it was everybody, and we just, some of us work with intermediate teachers, and it was just, that's just how we work at our school. That's just kind of how it's become.
So the opportunity to reflect, I think, probably is part of that, and to intermingle. And
what
also,
does that, Michelle? What does that look like? If I can interrupt, the reflection, is it individual? Is it peer share? Is it?
Well, it was for that particular activity. It could be any of those things, right?
Yeah.
But for that particular activity, it was as a small group, and reflecting, and then collaborating and creting something, right? Co-creating something, which really we were practically like co-creating criteria, I guess, in a way. And then I think also the setting of intentions for our meetings is really, which Lucinda does an amazing job of, so that you feel when you're going into the meeting that there's a purpose, and that there's a goal, and that you have a joint purpose, and you feel invested.
There's also
Yeah.
often something that you take away to think about too,
Mm-hmm.
to bring back for the next time.
Right,
Which
yeah.
is, for some of us, I like to make decisions very quickly, and I like things to be just so. And
Having that pause.
Yeah, the pause
Yeah.
built in is really good.
Yeah. So the decision making is
No, it's
mindful.
collaboration.
Mindful, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting differences. Yeah, very neat.
Yeah.
And the staff meetings again are different than the professional Tuesday afternoon meetings. They're just
Yeah.
distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different structure, different purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Business stuff versus professional learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I know this is just the end of the year. You guys are just hanging on, but I just love the conversation. What are your hopes for next year? Where your team will go, where the school will go, maybe even where the district will go in terms of supporting and giving you the support that you need?
We would love to get our PLC time back.
Yeah.
Say again?
We would love to get our PLC time back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that one needs another kick. Sorry.
We're quite
Yeah,
excited about
just hold
I
on.
know. Should I mention it?
Yes.
That
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Double check.
Yeah, red light's still on. Great. Okay.
So clap.
Shall I ask the question again?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
No?
Okay. Next year, aspirations, hopes. What do you want it to look like? What do you need from the school, the district, from the outside?
Yeah, we would really love our collaboration time back, our PLC
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone to, we found a solution,
Yes.
which I think is really what we do. That's part of adaptive
Yes.
schools. We've looked at, well, the problem is our Friday afternoons are now gone. What do we do? And we've come up with a solution for that. But ultimately, those Wednesdays that were dedicated to professional learning community, that was the bomb. that was really
and
rich.
I think for
Yeah.
people who are just starting, we know the value, we understand why it's so important, so we will choose to give up our time
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it. But for people who are just starting, it gets
Yes.
frustrating at times.
Yeah.
So if you're going to meet in your own time, you might
Yeah.
not keep going.
Especially if you haven't organically already decided that that's something that you want to do. So if you haven't organically
Yeah.
come to collaboration,
Something
But-
to focus on, something you are chasing.
Yeah.
but there's sort of a culture of collaboration, and you're wanting to foster that culture of collaboration. I think you do need some of those more structured pieces in place, so that then it gives opportunity for that to really grow.
So what you're saying, it depending on how far along you are on the continuum. If you're really
Yes.
dedicated and you've been immersed in collaborative mindsets for a long time, as I'm feeling you are, then that's one thing. But the other thing is if you're just testing it out, trying to figure out whether it's worth your time in, and you've
Yeah.
not tasted the Kool-Aid yet.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, for the
That's
toe
very
dippers,
true
right?
for the toe
Yeah.
dippers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you truly have to have a different mindset when you're collaborating. It's truly a mindset that's changed from it's just a complete difference for
one
me.
of isolation to
Yeah.
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 Well, and it's positive self-talk or positive talk too, because when we first started, that was one of the biggest things
For
was
us,
you
yeah.
had to frame things in a positive way.
Interesting.
Because so often we would get stuck in all this, they can't do this, they can't do that, this is blah, blah, blah. And rather, we had to shift how we spoke about our students too. The staff room talk and stuff, we really needed to consciously make an effort to
move to
shift.
possibilities and strength as opposed to deficit. and
Or
weakness.
what do
Yeah.
they need help with? Okay, this
Yeah.
is what they need.
Yeah.
But we had a boost teacher. We had 2
Yeah.
boost teachers this year, and I would like that again because that really helped.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Having
For-
an extra body,
Yeah.
right,
Having
to
that
help
support.
learners.
And that came in after the court settlement?
No, that
No.
came from the poster that we made last year that we presented at the school review that
Oh.
Leah was talking about,
Yeah.
that had all the color, it was
Yeah.
coded.
Yeah.
And we just said, look, this is the need of our school.
And
We
we have-
require more support. And based on the visual, which you couldn't ignore, because there was a lot of red, which meant that these are kids at risk. this is what we need. And so when we did our school review, that was what we presented, and they said yes. And so that's how we got our booth.
This comes some powerful advocacy with
Yeah.
some great media representation. And
Yeah.
it really paid off. Yeah.
Which
argument for resources. Right?
yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Which so I was listening to. I felt so deflated when I got the email that said we're officially not doing collaboration time, and I just felt weird. You know, we've had the run and read, and then Kevin Reimer was at Puntledge, and we got the benefit of run and read at Puntledge as well, and I used to work there, so I could see this. And then we got PLC, and I was like, this is awesome. And or no, we did run and read, and then we had professional partnerships,
Yes.
and then we went to PLC,
Yes.
and then we went to curriculum implementation time, and I just felt gutted by not having something in place that shows the value of working together. And it just felt like I was just really frustrated. And so I had to walk away and let it process. And then I was listening to murmurings, and I'm just not a person who just sits and idly watches things go by and not do something about it. So I was a risk taker, and I wrote an email to Dean expressing my frustration, and also to our CDTA president as well. Like, how can we not do something? How is this this can't be the end of the road? Like this, we've made so much gain and so much. I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand how this can happen. And I was surprised because within 12 hours I had a conversation. It might have been by the end of that day, but of course I teach kindergarten, so I don't check my email during the day. And there was, both of them responded to me in terms of how much they support it, but it was just the logistics of it is a really difficult piece of it. And so then I was talking to my colleagues about, well, what could we do? Could we make an alternate plan? Could we do this? Could we do that? So we met as a staff and we talked about it and discussed it. And from there, then we decided that as a staff, we want to wait because this was like June 3rd or something. I had heard that we had this conversation. It's too fast. It's too rushed. We want to do it purposefully, and we want to do it meaningfully, and being aware of our community and the changes that have come with Arden going down to Lake Trail at a younger age, and just too much and too soon for them. We wanted to let it.
Was a bit.
The timing wasn't good. So we have committed to meeting on the Tuesdays after school because we value this, but we would also like to look at proposing an alternate schedule and possibly piloting something so we were told we can table it and we'll talk about it at a later point in time.
And we hope that they really will take us up on that because it is really something. I think we sat down and we had some ideas of how that might look.
Yeah.
And that we would love to be the pilot school to do that.
I think we just, and we all agree that we need to really take our community into mind, though, and our parents, and trying to figure out how to do something that works for them too, because
we do have a lot of at-risk.
We do have a lot of at-risk students and families.
And
the
parents.
And the parents have been through a lot of significant change all through this last 4 years. To try to mitigate
there's more.
some shift.
Being really mindful of our community, right?
So taking the initiative, first of all, clarifying the values, clarifying what's really means a lot to all of you. And Katie, you talked about that symbolic hit, or you're devaluing us by virtue of taking this away, but then getting into a good conversation with them about, okay, here are the logistics, okay, I'm beginning to see the bigger system, what's going on, but the main thing, what can we do?
Yeah.
So you're not sitting back waiting for the next hit. You're saying, okay, let's do it. We can carve this out. We can frame this for ourselves, and we're willing to explore and experiment with different things along.
And I think that's basically RTI right there.
And adaptive schools.
And adaptive
because that's what we do.
That's exactly
with our students.
Yeah.
Well, even when we were doing our reflection this morning, and what was it? What worked? What didn't? And what's next? We got to the what didn't part, and we're like, it wasn't that we didn't encounter problems. We did.
Yeah.
But none of those problems are
significant.
were significant.
Yeah.
They were
And we
they
fixed
were
it.
left.
Yeah.
They
fixed
they
it.
were
Yeah.
insurmountable. We
Yeah.
kept problem solving, and we
Yes.
kept getting past it, and we kept finding ways to make it work and finding solutions and things. So
Yeah.
it was funny to go, well, what didn't work? Well, there were lots of things along the way that didn't work, but we overcame them, and we found ways around them, and we made things work.
Yeah.
But I think that was also based on how much we collaborated.
Yes.
Like if
Yeah.
we had 2 or 3 weeks in between our conversations about where we're
Yeah.
going, we may have had a lot more, because we would have
That's
been
right.
frustrated for 3 weeks with a system
Yes,
rather than
that's right.
4 days.
But I think because we also move and
Yeah.
get to teach them all,
Exactly.
we get to experience it all. It's
Yeah.
not like, okay, you're always with that group and you're always doing
Yeah.
that thing. I
Yes.
never know how you're feeling because
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, we all do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
are-
Yeah.
Yeah. To play the devil's advocate for a minute, if you were to be transferred into another school where there's just very little value,
feel
because
that.
we don't want this to be saying that this exists everywhere in the district, we know that's not true. But if you were to imagine the school at the other end of the continuum, I don't know what that would be, I'm not going to name it, but
Yeah.
if you were to dance in it, what would you do? How would you start next year? What advice, Michelle?
Well, I just talked about it a little bit just because before I came to Arden, I was at Miracle Beach, and I worked really closely with my kindergarten teacher
Yeah.
there as well.
Yes.
And it was something I valued and loved. And so when I came here, I was eyeing up Leah, right? Like, it was already, I was kind of already looking like, is she interested? I think I would seek out like-minded
Like-minded,
individuals.
yeah.
And
Start with a dual.
Start with building relationship.
building
Yeah.
a relationship and trust,
Yeah.
and trying to find people who were also interested in collaboration. Is suss out the admin and see how they feel about it.
And going into a school with no preconceived notions, going in with a positive attitude,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the important.
Yes, yes. Because it's a tough question for us. There's so many people are,
And-
they look at you and go, yeah, that would be nice, but where do you start?
But I think you just start small.
That's
right. You start where you're comfortable too.
Yeah.
If I really liked being outside, so we started outside, and it's like, okay, and we team taught, so I would teach the group, Michelle would help, and then Michelle would teach the group, and I would help, and that way we got to watch each other teach and go, hey, I like how you do that, I like how you explain that, and that word you used, and all those different things, and then it's like, okay, now we can move on from something we're super comfortable with to maybe something we're a little bit more risk-taking with.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not just going to jump in and get it.
Is this a nature or nurture situation? Is this who you are versus what you can learn?
I think it's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
I'd say it's both.
Well, you have described very different
Yeah.
personalities
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
the four, and Lucinda as well on the
Yeah.
team.
I think so.
I think it's a willingness,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what.
right?
Yes.
So I think if you're willing, then the world could be your oyster. Your doors are opened. But if you're less engaged in an
What's that
opportunity,
like continuum of change? right?
Yeah,
Where
right.
There's some people who are the first people into change,
Yes.
and there's some people who are kind of sit back and see what happens here.
Yeah.
kind of people, and then there's the people who are like, I'm not going there, right?
But I think
So
the importance
the first
is honoring
adopters,
that.
right down to the people who are like
Yeah.
the resistors, right? And
Sarah, you.
I think the importance, it just struck me as is honoring that
Yes.
some people might be ready to jump on the boat this
Yes.
year, and
Yes.
they may just want to sit back and watch, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you're
okay.
making progress,
That's
I
right.
think it's the most
Yeah.
important part. Like, and the progress might be tiny.
The door is closed.
Okay,
That's good.
so because sometimes, like we even worked with somebody who really wasn't on board.
Yeah.
No.
With-
We just pulled them along.
And once we were established enough, we could
Yeah.
begin to pull them along,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They were swept with the energy.
Yeah. Well, and even
There's
just
some real student results to pull.
Like,
Yes.
They're all teachers. want.
involved in it, even though there's still not a whole lot of belief in it,
Mm-hmm.
or a love of collaborating,
Yes.
but still kind of swept along because that's what's happening,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
This
Because
is what
this
we're
is the
doing.
direction
This
we're
is your
going.
role in it. Here you go.
So I think you move
Yeah.
from that
Mhm.
sort of like the dabble,
Yes, yes.
and that gains momentum until you.
the current just carries.
It
you.
just
It becomes the natural way to
this
be.
is just the way it is
Mhm.
now,
Interesting. Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So if we were to take the Arden culture model, if you will, or your RTI culture model, and move that into another school, is it transferable?
Well, it's
Yes,
all about kids, so
absolutely. Yeah, okay.
of course it
I
is.
think
Yeah.
if you base it from the values and the norms of collaboration, and like you're using that as your foundation.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the belief that you're there to help every student achieve.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, that's where we start.
That's
Yeah.
where we
Yeah.
start.
And I
And
think
they
there's-
all can achieve.
They
Yes.
all can achieve.
Mhm.
You know, I
So
think.
it's a belief or a mindset.
It is a
Yeah, it's
mindset,
a
and
mindset,
yeah.
you need. I want to say not leaders, but
You need people who are willing to take the risk
people
to
who
do
are
it.
really believing in it
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
to start,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the people who aren't believing in it
We'll
Permission to grow into it too.
will have that permission, like you
And
say,
it,
right?
and it might take longer for them to,
Yeah.
right? It might need to percolate for longer.
That's right.
So, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
give that time.
So at the start, you find out what people value around students and their learning and the kids, and then try to create that common ground and then
Yeah.
start to build from there. You know.
It starts from who are our kids and what do they need?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And what do I bring to the
definitely.
table?
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beginning with the kids and what they need, and
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I'm aware of the time. Lucinda, how are you doing? Good, good. Is there anything you'd like to add in?
Not a lot, but I was sitting back there, and really, they're the leaders of this, and I just regularly go to them to consult. Okay, hey, if I'm encountering this, what do you suggest? Or if we're having a staff meeting, then we get together and we plan it together. Okay, what do we need to do? What's going on right now, and make adjustments. And there was a point where one of the teams was starting to kind of get off track and go towards an older model, and I was very disappointed and was trying to think about some strategies around how to kind of steer it back. And with their support, we created these guiding parameters for RTI, which was based on what we knew for
Yeah.
the structure. Communicating student learning, that having that piece really grounded the work. So I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on how it seems to me like it's kind of irrelevant to you because you just you're
you know
gone.
what? I was thinking of that when you were asking about the staff meeting. I don't want to interrupt you. When you were asking about how the staff meeting went, and we got into the details of the
Yeah.
We
If we had
mention-
framed it in the guiding parameters,
Yeah.
which we had actually talked about in our meeting, but didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually wrote it down or anything.
Yeah, it got lost.
We got lost somewhere. But if we had used that, I wonder what would have happened this morning.
Yeah.
If we had framed instead of we maybe got into the what worked, what didn't, what's next, but
And people got overwhelmed. I think the people who were feeling off track
Uncomfortable.
were overwhelmed, I think. With
but if
it.
they could have broken it down into those
Pieces, yeah.
pieces,
So maybe in our next meeting in August,
I wonder.
then bringing that graphic, and I should show you too,
Yeah.
but you can find it interesting, just to kind of ground the conversation and give direction again.
Especially where the difficulties are, right? Like some things are easy and you can figure them out, but for some of the people, scheduling or time or grouping or whatever it is, that's
Giving up
really
little
hard.
control.
They're used to being an island and off teaching in your classroom on your own, and you can't be an island.
Well, I think that's,
Just a
It
second.
makes
Can I
things-
just interrupt? This just ended.
yeah.
We talked too much.
Yeah. Don't talk to her, she'll forget
I
it.
just had this thought.
It's
I just thought that
so
Lucinda
great.
wasn't minding the camera anymore. I have somebody better. So it's
That's a
me.
good point.
Yeah.
It just happened because I
I
saw
don't
a red light just
Was it
recently.
flashing? Was it fire or just red light? Okay.
Just red light.
It just started to flash.
That's
Do you
funny.
remember the last half hour? Could you just
Repeat that. But actually,
Say that again.
I won't.
There we go. Okay, so if you could pick that up, that would be great. We're sorry to interrupt. But what was
Okay,
it?
I was just thinking about how when we made those guiding parameters. So you put an individual one in each of our box and asked for feedback on it because we had given you some ideas and then you had typed it up and it looked much nicer than all of our notes. And so all three of us go into Michelle's room on that day. You were not working that day. And we're like, well, we're not doing this by ourselves. So what we did is we collaborated about making guiding parameters for collaboration in it. Like, it just makes me smile.
So
So
funny
it's like,
that that's your default.
why
Yes,
would
it
we...
is. It's the default.
Why would we do this by ourselves when we
Yeah.
can all do this
Yeah.
together? This is way better. So Michelle was writing and Leah and I were giving
Really
ideas
brainstorming.
and
Yeah.
then we brought it to listen and there's like writing all over it. Just like, oh, okay, so there's just one? Well, yeah, we just all did it
sat down
together.
with it.
So we
But
just...
yeah, in my role too, it's just this automatic consults with you guys because you're just running with it.
Leaders in it.
Yeah, but the purpose of the guiding parameters were initially about steering it back, but I see them now as really being a helpful tool to move forward.
I think we totally could use
I mean, it
them.
did.
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Well, it helps take the ego out of the equation. It helps it become more of a group. What can we do?
Yeah.
How do we think? It's not an individual process. When you look at that and you read it, it makes you think about all the kids in grade 4 and all the kids in grade 5.
Yeah.
And it allows for that reflective piece of it that's in our adaptive schools model about, okay, let's look at these values, these things that we've decided are our parameters and helps us sort of frame it in a way that's reflective,
Yeah.
I think, and maybe more responsive.
And it keeps you in check. Every once in a while you go back to it and you go,
Oh, yeah.
oh, right, were we thinking that?
Yeah.
No, okay, we need to change what we're doing. Yeah.
Which is why it's a foundation, right? Because that, just like a visual support is about bringing you back so that you remember, right? So when you
I
get
need lots
off
of those.
track, you need the visual to bring you back on track. So that's why you have the guiding parameters, is so you can do a check and go, oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh, we're not quite there, so we should bring that back, right?
When we can all see through these tools, we're choosing this way, and it's ours. Right? And now we can follow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
Conscious
it's
and
visual.
transparent.
Well, and it's nice to know other people are feeling the same way sometimes too.
Just saying it sometimes.
It's like, oh, okay.
It's like honoring the resistors, honoring, well, they have something they are hanging on to for a reason.
Yes.
So honoring that resistance,
Yes.
and letting them work with that until they're ready to move.
Totally.
Well, I think in the spirit of making you guys not watch a 2-hour movie,
Thank you.
I'd love for you to have a look at it and see if there are any things you'd like to change. I just want to thank you, if I can, at this point, thank you each for, and Lucinda for setting it up with you, for your contributions. I mean, it's a highly functional, high performing team, and it's of interest to us to sort of like what's the DNA? What is it that is the foundation, and what is it day by day that keeps you focused on the quality of work and the quality of engagement focused around kids. So thank you so much. I really
Great
appreciate
work,
it.
honoring.
You're welcome.
And it's fun.
It is
Yeah,
fun.
it is
I
fun.
love
It makes work a lot easier and a lot more fun and more enjoyable for sure.
Yeah.